their obituary a lot because if you're a reporter, you get a pretty decent sized obituary. It's a matter of professional courtesy. And I always think the subhead of my obituary is going to be monolingual reporter succumbs. The languages were not my big subject in school. Geography was my subject. I love geography. You can imagine how distressed I get when I read these surveys that the average high school senior in America thinks Alabama is the capital of Chicago or something like that. And I think this love was formed in early car trips with my family. I grew up in Kansas City, and we used to take long trips in the summer. Kansas City is what the real estate people would call equally convenient to either coast. And sometimes we came east, but we usually went west, and my father would be in the front seat pointing out the buttes and the mesas, and my sister and I would be in the back seat arguing over territory. I know that the people in this room were probably above that as children. But we had something ferocious going on. Not as bad as somebody who told me that her brother complained to their parents once, "He's looking out my window."
That's pretty good.
We didn't go that far, but it was bad enough. I used to compare it to the geopolitical border tensions, like along the border between, say, Finland and the old Soviet Union. I played Finland. My sister, the oppressor, played the Soviet Union. And then my father said something that now sounds quite retrograde, but he was traditionally raised and he didn't mean anything by it. He said to me, "We do not hit girls." It's very damaging to my cause, I think. He said, "We do not hit girls. You will never hit your sister again." My sister was not visited with a similar injunction. So I became a unilaterally disarmed Finland. I now think if I hadn't had to concentrate on a sister with expansionist backseat policies, I would now know the difference between a butte and a mesa. So I got very interested in geography as a little boy, and I think that led to my writing mainly about America. As you probably know, America's got a number of regions. Actually, for a while, regionalists became rather popular in geography departments, Northeast and the Middle Atlantic states. I do the same sort of thing, except I use only 2 regions. This is partly because of my math, another one of my weak subjects. I was never able to persuade the mathematics teachers that many of my answers were meant ironically. And I had trouble with pi, as the pi r² sort of pi. As you may know, the Texas State Legislature, Gary's home legislature, passed a resolution some years ago in favor of changing pi to an even 3. And I was for it. Sounded good to me. But anyway, I only have 2 regions. I have the old United States, the ancien United States. There you've heard some of my French right there. And that is made up of the part of the United States that had Major League Baseball before the Second World War. The rest of the United States is called the rest of the United States. Or the expansion team United States, if you're looking for a kinder way of expressing it. And the way to tell where you are, if you're traveling in America, the way to tell where you are, if you don't happen to be someone who followed Major League Baseball in 1945, is if you go into an Italian restaurant in the ancien United States, the waiter's name is going to be Vinny or maybe even Luigi. If you go into an Italian restaurant and the waiter's name is Dwayne, you're in the expansion team, United States. And I've been, I think, interested in the various states and how they distinguish themselves ever since those trips when I was a boy. Many states in America have license plate mottos. I don't think that's a European custom. I think I would like to see some European. I might even be able to suggest a few. I don't think I'll do it tonight, but and the license plate mottos in the and for those of you who haven't been to the last remaining superpower, these are written right on the license plate, and in the East they tend to be rather grandiose. New York, the Empire State. Little New Hampshire, live free or die. The Midwest, where I'm from, much more modest. We're generally known for our modesty in the Midwest. If there were such a thing as a regional license plate, our license plate would say, no big deal. And I mean, Oklahoma's, for instance, says Oklahoma's okay. That's a typical Midwestern license plate.
It's overstating it.
Some years ago, Wisconsin, a lot of people in Wisconsin seemed unsatisfied with their motto. They didn't seem say they were adequately described by the motto, America's Dairyland. So some people suggested, eat cheese or die. There's somebody from Wisconsin. And some states don't even have license plate mottos. They're so modest. Nebraska, for instance. I thought of a very good one for Nebraska, a long way across. And Arkansas. My one for Arkansas needs a little work on it. It's a little wordy still to fit on license plates. It's not as bad as you might have imagined. If you look at some of these cultural region books, they will say that when people say people are very American or something is very American, they're usually talking about the customs and culture of the Midwest and the upper Midwest particularly. So that those people are what you might think of as typical Americans or real Americans, or what people in New York call out-of-towners. And that's where I'm from. And the typical vision of the Midwest is fields of soybeans or wheat or corn, silos in the distance holding all this stuff, mother in the kitchen baking bread. Not my own mother. My mother served her family for 30 years, nothing but leftovers.
They never found the original.
It wasn't until I was out of college that I started thinking, leftover from what? But the original meal has never been found. And the Kiwanis Club, one of our service clubs, sort of like Rotary, one of the Kiwanis Club meeting on Wednesdays, eating chicken a la king. Now, a lot of you who aren't that old have never heard of chicken a la king. But I want you to know that this country, the United States of America, used to be awash in chicken a la king. In fact, I attended a lot of Kiwanis Club meetings as a reporter, and they had a song, I'd rather be a Kiwanian than in any other club. And I actually made up a verse for them, which is, there's nothing can defeat us, whatever life may bring, because we can go and eat us some chicken a la king. I'd rather be a Kiwanian than in any other club. Actually, Chicken-a-la King, very interesting in talking about regions of the United States, since it was a multi-regional, multi-class dish. It was a Kiwanis Club luncheon dish, but also if you went to a debutante party in the North Shore of Long Island, and I know you're looking at me, how does he know about debutante? Well, I went to Yale, and there were a lot of people at Yale with 3 last names. My own roommate, we called Thatcher Baxter Hatcher. Whose name was Thatcher Baxter Hatcher. You didn't actually call him those names. They all had little bitty nicknames like Mutt and Skip and things like that. Thatcher Baxter Hatcher was called Tush. Tush Hatcher. And he took me to debutante parties. And at debutante parties, they had what they called supper around midnight. This was 7 or 8 hours after people at home had eaten supper. We try to get everybody fed before dark in Kansas City. And they would walk out with trays, big silver, beautiful trays, and on the trays, Chicken-a-la King. Not as good as Kiwanis Chicken-a-la King, but Chicken-a-la King. And in fact, there's one theory that's why people from that background talk like this without moving their teeth. The theory is that glop that Chicken-a-la King is floating around in, particularly if it has had contact with silver, particularly if the silver's been in the family for more than 3 generations, can cause the teeth to bind together. So I ended up as an American reporter. I have done some pieces in other countries, but mainly I've reported about America. And for 15 years, I did a piece every 3 weeks for the New Yorker on somewhere in America. And at the same time, a wonderful AP reporter named Jules Lowe was doing a similar series for the Associated Press. And we formed another group like IDPO, which was the American Association of American Correspondents Covering America. Our acronym was GLINGPAC. We just sort of liked the name, the way that sounded, GLINGPAC. And our headquarters was O'Hare Airport in Chicago, where we spent most of our time waiting for another plane. As many of you know, O'Hare claims to be the busiest airport in the world. They say that more planes land and take off at O'Hare than any other airport in the world. What they don't tell you is a lot more land than take off. The only rival to O'Hare is Atlanta Airport. Atlanta is to boosterism what the Serengeti is to lions. Atlanta is a fantastically boosteristic town, if that's a word. When I lived in Atlanta for a year, particularly whenever we passed the financial district of 5 Points, the local booster would say, this was right in the middle of the Cold War, he would say, did you know that Atlanta is the 4th target on the Kremlin's map of nuclear destruction? I don't know where this statistic came from. I assume the Kiwanis Club had as a guest some civil defense general or something. And